Let's bring in Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the President of the United States. Hey, Kellyanne, welcome back.
Good morning.
Morning. First off, on the president's decision to delay the raids on people who have already been adjudicated and they shouldn't be in this country to begin with, what do you think is going to happen in the last 2 weeks? You are in the Capitol, but you're also a realist. What's going to change in 2 weeks?
This is all up to the Democrats in Congress. As the president and I and others who speak on his behalf have made clear for a year plus, they can solve some of these problems in one simple session if they would just come to the table. 3 quick things. They can reform the asylum laws, give us a fix on the Flores settlement, which is a court decision that prevents us from holding children over 21 days, and we have to release them into the interior. Nobody can guarantee what happens to those children once they're released into this interior. We don't know if they're trafficked, if they're violated, if they're killed, if they're worse. And the third thing, of course, is the TVPRA. We have kids being recycled. You grab the hand of a child and pretend you're a family unit, you have a better chance of coming over this border. But this requires congressional action. If the president could do it on his own, he would have done it a long time ago. This president, as you've seen with health care, as you've seen with other pieces of immigration, trade, anything he can do administratively on his own, he does. But we need Congress to come to the table. We now have help with Mexico, and that's going much better now that Mexico is helping us. But you see the crisis at the border. I saw that Leader McCarthy in the House said that every member of Congress should have to go down and go and visit the southern border and see what's happening there. I think that's a fabulous idea. They all ran down there a year ago to make a political point. They should go down there now and see the humanitarian national security crisis we have at hand. But the president is telling Congress, come to the table. He spoke with Speaker Pelosi at length on Friday night. He agreed to take a 2-week pause. But as you see with tariffs and as you see with Mexico a couple of weeks ago, when the president speaks, other people seem to snap into attention.
Right.
And I hope that happens here. Congress has to get this done. It's their job.
Well, Kellyanne, Speaker Pelosi has said that the House Democrats will pass part of the president's emergency border funding bill, but the humanitarian part, it doesn't, according to what we've heard, doesn't include the asylum stuff or closing the loopholes, which you just detailed. So if 2 weeks from last Friday, nothing is done on those, are they going to take the ICE raids off the ice?
The president has told you that he's serious about engaging in the next steps. He was ready to do it last week and got a call from the speaker. But I guess the question is for them. Why? If you actually are finally admitting that this is not a manufactured crisis, but a real crisis, a real and present danger to so many involved, then why are you only going to go for half a loaf? If you're going to go ahead and meet those humanitarian needs, which we're happy to hear since Congress, the Democrats have blocked funding 17 times. Funding for HHS is running out of money to pay the people at the border and to meet these humanitarian needs. They've blocked the funding 17 times. For what purpose? To score cheap political points? And so if they're going to do that and admit that we have a crisis, why aren't they going to go all the way? They know that these laws are broken. Congress in this country makes the laws. The president executes the laws. The judiciary interprets the laws. They've got to come to the table and do the full job, not just a half job.
Okay.
The president giving them 2 weeks, giving Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats 2 weeks, but also with Iran pulling back what he was going to do, which was to strike back after they took down our drone. Now he's saying, I'm going to impose more sanctions, hoping that might bring them to the table. What do you think?
Well, the president said very clearly on a different network yesterday that he doesn't want war. He doesn't want this to escalate. He would like to negotiate with Iran, but so far Tehran seems unwilling. But those sanctions will continue. We are now a large oil exporter, energy exporter. We can't go on and have nuclear blackmail and disruption of global oil markets and the reign of terror on their own innocent people that we see from Iran. Right. So this president will continue to want to negotiate, but at the same time remain tough. It is he who undid the deal, the terrible deal the last president put into place, which resulted in the U.S. forking over pallets of cash, billions of dollars, and a really bad deal And we also know that Israel is our best friend in that region, and we are always looking out for Israel's interests as well. Ambassador Bolton, our NSC director, has been there this weekend.
Meanwhile, Kellyanne, you were in the eye of the storm last week or a week ago. Sorry, they're all blending together. As some ethics committee came out and said you have multiple violations of the Hatch Act, saying that you're mixing politics and government business. And they're threatening, if you don't come testify, to subpoena you. Where does that stand? What do you say about it?
Well, it'd be good if everybody had a quick tutorial on the Hatch Act, what it is and what it is not. It's not even clear to us here at the White House, according to White House counsel, that the Hatch Act applies to assistance to the president. It's not even clear what the Hatch Act allows. I would be the first, we think I'd be the first member of the West Wing to ever be hauled in front of Congress to talk about the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act means that you can't advocate for or against the election of an individual. And if I'm talking about the failures of Obama-Biden care, if I'm talking about the fact that 28 million Americans have no health insurance, that's a fact. If I'm quoting what some of the candidates say about the other candidates, I'm just repeating the news to you as I read it that day. You know what they're mad about? They want to put a big roll of masking tape over my mouth, because I helped as a campaign manager for the successful part of the campaign. I helped in many ways for the president and the vice president, who were our two greatest assets, and they won that election over the other two. But I helped by being on television, by being on radio. I helped, and they want to silence me now. This is my First Amendment rights. They want to chill free speech because they don't know how to beat him at the ballot box. They were hoping that the other office of special counsel would do the job. But look, we're not even, and even if the Hatch Act applies, our position is I haven't violated it.
Well, and we had the president on about 10 days ago, and we asked him whether or not he was going to take the advice of the special counsel and fire you. He said, nope, you're doing your job, and it all comes down to freedom of your speech, in his estimation.
But also, and let's just make clear, the White House counsel's office issued an 11-page letter about 12 days ago. I'll post it on Twitter today. I know Twitter people just want to read 280 characters, but everybody should read this letter, because White House counsel's office makes very clear what is and isn't afoot here. The other thing is that people should take a look at Crew. People are raising money on Twitter for Crew. Crew thinks of itself as a watchdog agency. Go look at who's part of Crew. If they want to become household names, I'm happy to help them out. Let's see if they can take the Klieg lights a little bit. They are a left-wing propaganda machine of provocateurs who are trying to weaponize the Hatch Act. Many of them have worked for Democratic senators in the past and left-wing groups in the past, and they don't like the fact that I'm so effective at a tiny piece of my job. By the way, I hold forth on policy on your show and out on the White House driveway constantly talking about policy. They don't want to cover that. It's too hard to understand. Too many syllables, I guess. But I'm the one out there talking about, look what the president's going to do at 3 o'clock today.
Yep, gotcha.
Transparency in healthcare. This is important, folks. Transparency in healthcare. Make the hospitals and the
run.
doctors publish their prices. He wants great healthcare for this country. This is a part of it. Thank you.